The morning of my wedding began with a soft golden light spilling across the walls of my small brick house in Denver, America. I had bought this house 4 years earlier for $240,000 after years of saving every spare dollar I earned. It wasn't huge, but it had charm. A wide porch with 2 rocking chairs, tall white windows that always made the rooms feel open, and a small garden that I filled with flowers every spring. I used to stand on the porch and imagine the life I would build inside those walls. On my wedding morning, I believed that the future was about to begin. Inside my bedroom, my dress hung from the closet door. I had spent $1,200 on it, more than I ever expected to spend, but the moment I tried it on, I felt like I was stepping into a different version of myself. The lace sleeves, the soft satin skirt, the way it caught the morning light. It all felt like hope. The shoes lay beside it, simple ivory heels that I had bought after 3 days of searching. My veil was neatly folded on the dresser, next to the bouquet of white roses I picked up late last night. Everything was ready. Everything except my heart, which felt too light and too heavy at the same time. What made the morning feel even more strange was the secret I carried. No one knew the full truth about my position at Hayes Tech Systems. My fiancé, Adam Wilson, thought I was a mid-level manager earning around $80,000 a year. I let him think that because I wanted him to love me, not my success. In reality, I was the sole owner of Hayes Tech, a company worth close to $90 million across America and parts of Europe. I had earned my ownership the hard way, long nights, endless travel, and years of proving myself. But I never once bragged. I never once hinted. I wanted a partner, not an employee. As I walked around the house, fixing my hair and touching up my makeup, I tried not to think about the moments when Adam's mother, Evelyn Wilson, acted like I was something she needed to train. She often made comments like, "A wife should listen more than she talks," or "A woman's job is to support the man, not lead him." I used to ignore it because I thought marriage would change things, that once we started our own lives, we would decide our own roles. I didn't want to fight before the wedding. I wanted peace. At 10 o'clock, I drove to the Wilson family home. The house was huge, an old European-style estate on the west side of Denver, worth at least $1.3 million from what Adam once mentioned. Tall trees lined the driveway, casting long shadows across the stone path. The house had large arched windows, a heavy wooden door, and wide steps that made it feel more like a museum than a home. I walked inside expecting to discuss last-minute wedding details, maybe the seating plan, or the timing of the ceremony. Instead, I found something entirely different. Adam's entire family sat in the living room, waiting for me. The room was cold, both in temperature and feeling. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows, hitting the polished wooden floors and reflecting off the glass table in the center. No one smiled. No one said congratulations. It felt like I had walked into a courtroom, not a celebration. Adam stood near the fireplace, his hands behind his back like he was preparing for a serious discussion. His mother, Evelyn, sat in a chair with her chin raised and her cold blue eyes sharpened. Adam's sister, Claire, sat beside her with a smirk that made my stomach tighten. I clutched my purse harder. "What's going on?" I asked. Evelyn didn't waste a second. "You will give us your entire salary and all your yearly bonuses after the wedding," she said, her voice steady, like she was reading a rule from a book. "This is how our family works. If you refuse, the wedding ends today." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The words didn't even make sense at first. My salary? My bonuses? The money I worked for years? I looked at Adam, waiting, praying for him to say this was some kind of joke. But he didn't. He looked completely serious. "My mother is right," he said. "This is for our future. You must obey the order."
Obey.
That word hit me like a slap. I felt heat rise in my face, but I kept silent because I wanted to hear the truth from him. I wanted to see if any part of him would stand beside me. He didn't. His arms crossed.
His voice stayed flat.
He didn't even blink. And something inside me cracked open. Not sadness. Not pain.
Clarity.
I saw everything clearly for the first time, the way Evelyn tried to control every detail of my life, The way Adam listened to her like every word she spoke was law, the way they believed I should bend just because I was a woman. I felt a wave of shock wash through me, but beneath that shock, something stronger began to rise. A reminder of who I was, what I built, and what I carried inside the small binder resting in my purse. I took a deep breath. I let the silence stretch. I let them think I was weak. Then, very slowly, I placed my purse on the table, opened it, and pulled out the folder that held the truth none of them were prepared for. In that moment, the wedding morning shifted into something else, not a celebration, but the beginning of a storm that they never saw coming. Standing in that cold living room felt like standing in a courtroom where I had already been judged guilty of something I didn't commit. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and old fireplace smoke, and the morning sun cast sharp beams across the floor, making the whole Wilson house look colder, not warmer. My wedding day smile was still on my face, but it felt stiff now, like a mask that no longer belonged to me. I kept glancing at Adam, hoping he would suddenly come to his senses, but he looked almost proud, as if he believed he had finally shown me my place. Evelyn was still talking, repeating the same thing over and over, like she was reading lines from a script she had rehearsed for years. A wife's income belongs to the family. This is an honor. This is our tradition. You will follow it. She sat up straight, hands folded on her lap, every word coming out smooth and practiced. It was almost amusing, considering she lived off a trust fund worth over $1 million from her European relatives and had never worked a day in her life. Yet here she was, teaching me about responsibility. Adam kept nodding beside her. Just agree, he said, sounding bored, as if my entire life was nothing more than a signature on a piece of paper. We need to start our marriage the right way. My mother is guiding you. Everything will be fine once you do as told. Do as told. Obey the order.
Give us your salary.
Every phrase felt like a chain. I had always known Evelyn enjoyed control, but I never expected Adam to echo her so easily. This was the man who once told me he admired my independence. The man who claimed he loved that I worked hard, that I had goals, that I had plans. Now here he was, standing beside his mother like a shadow, trying to negotiate the price of my future. My heart was beating hard, but my mind was strangely calm. Something inside me had shifted, almost like a quiet voice whispering, "Enough." Without speaking, I reached into my purse and pulled out the small black binder I always carried. I hadn't planned to use it. I only brought it to check a few emails before the ceremony. But the moment my fingers touched the edge, I knew the truth inside it could end everything, or free me completely. I placed the binder on the table with a soft thud that made the entire room fall silent. "Adam," I said, keeping my voice steady, "do you know who signs your checks?" He frowned, confused. "The board does. You don't." I felt a sharp, quiet satisfaction rise in my chest. "Actually," I said, "I am the board." For a second, no one breathed. Evelyn's eyes snapped open wide, the way someone reacts when a chandelier suddenly falls from the ceiling. Claire's smirk faded. Adam blinked once, then again, his mouth opening slightly like he was trying to form a word but couldn't. I opened the binder and spread out the documents on the glass table. Ownership papers, stock certificates, board decisions, and the page with my signature on it. Hayes Tech Systems. Full ownership. $90 million in value across America and Europe. I watched the truth sink into their faces as a stone dropped into deep water. "You," Adam whispered, "own the company?" "Yes," I said calmly. "The company you work for. The one you've been bragging about climbing through. The one you kept saying would make you a leader someday." I paused, letting the silence cut through the room. "It's mine." Evelyn stood so fast her chair scraped loudly across the floor. "You lied," she snapped. "A woman should tell her fiancé everything. This is deception." I turned to her. "You demanded my salary. You demanded my bonuses. You demanded obedience. But you never once asked who I truly was." Her face twisted in anger. Adam stepped closer to me, panic already rising in his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "We're supposed to share things." We were supposed to respect each other, I said. But you supported your mother's demand before even hearing my voice. He ran a hand through his hair, breathing hard. Look, we can fix this. Just calm down. Put the papers away. We'll talk after the wedding. The wedding.
The ceremony.
The life they thought they could shape around their rules. Suddenly, it all felt distant and small. I closed the binder slowly and looked him directly in the eyes. Since you and your mother think you can control my life, I said, let me show you how control really works. I took a long breath, not shaky, not rushed, but steady. Then I said the words I never planned to use on my wedding day. You're fired. The room went still. Even the air felt frozen. Adam's expression collapsed into disbelief. Evelyn's mouth fell open as if she couldn't understand how anyone dared speak to her that way. Claire looked like she was watching her favorite drama unfold in real time. You can't fire him, Evelyn snapped. I can, I replied. And I just did. All company access has been revoked immediately. His position is terminated. Effective now. Adam grabbed my arm, but I pulled away. Please, he said, voice cracking. You don't mean this. You're just angry. Let's sit and talk. No, I said. I'm finished talking. Evelyn started shouting, about respect, about family, about how I would regret this. But her words floated around me like dust. None of it mattered anymore. I picked up my purse, tucked the binder back inside, and walked toward the door. My heels clicked across the floors with a confidence I didn't even know I had. When I reached the doorway, I turned around one last time. You wanted to take everything from me? I said. Instead, you lost everything from me. Then I walked out into the bright Denver morning, calm, steady, free, leaving behind the wedding, the man, and the life they tried to trap me in. When I left the Wilson house that morning, I didn't drive fast. I didn't cry. I didn't scream, even though a part of me wanted to. Instead, I drove slowly through the quiet Denver streets, watching the sunlight shift across the sidewalks as if the whole city was clearing space for a new chapter of my life. My wedding dress was still waiting at home, hanging softly from the closet in my bedroom. The veil, my shoes, my bouquet, all untouched. It felt like I had walked out of one life and returned to another, one I had forgotten belonged to me. My small brick house felt different when I stepped inside. The air was still, the room silent, the walls steady. I had always loved that about my home. Even in chaos, it stayed calm. I dropped my purse on the couch, sat down, and let myself breathe. For a long time, I didn't move. I watched the light crawl across the floorboards, watched dust float in the sun's path, watched my hands slowly stop shaking. My phone buzzed over and over on the table, vibrating like something desperate trying to survive. I didn't touch it. 2 hours later, the buzzing stopped. Then, minutes after that, it started again, longer, louder, more frantic. I still didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the bedroom, looked at the wedding dress one last time, and carefully placed the veil inside its box. I wasn't sad. I wasn't relieved. I was simply done. By late afternoon, the doorbell rang. I knew it was him before I even looked through the window. Adam stood on my porch wearing the suit he bought for $400, his tie hanging loose and crooked. His hair was messy, like he had run his hands through it 100 times. He looked nothing like the confident man who demanded obedience that morning. He looked like someone who had been forced to see himself clearly for the first time. Please open the door, he called out. His voice cracked halfway through.
Please.
I just want to talk. I pulled the door open only enough to see him, not enough to let him step inside my space. He took one look at me and broke down.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. If I had known who you were, what you owned, I never would have. I raised a hand. There it was. The truth he hadn't meant to reveal. He wasn't apologizing for hurting me. He was apologizing for losing access to me. You didn't know because you never cared to ask, I said. You talked about traditions, rules, and obedience. You never talked about us. You never once asked what mattered to me. He shook his head quickly. No, that's not true. I thought we were building a life together. I thought my mother was guiding us. She said every marriage in our family works this way. Your mother, I said quietly, is not my owner. He swallowed hard, his eyes shining like he was holding back tears. I'll change. I'll speak to her. I'll fix it. We can still get married. We already planned everything. The guests are ready. The venue is ready. The pastor is waiting. I almost laughed, not out of humor, but out of disbelief. After everything that happened, he still thought the wedding mattered more than my dignity. Everything you planned was about control, I said. Not love. Not respect.
Not the partnership.
Just control. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. I can be better.
I swear.
I'll do whatever you want. Just don't throw this away. Throw this away? I repeated. You already threw it away this morning. He reached for my hand, but I pulled back. I didn't need to slap his hand away.
I didn't need to shout.
The quiet distance between us said more than anger ever could. Behind him, the sun was setting over the neighborhood, painting the sky with orange and soft pink. Children were riding bikes down the street. A couple was walking their dog. Life was moving forward peacefully, as if the entire world was reminding me that I had survived something dangerous and stepped back into safety. Let me in, he said, his voice cracking again.
Please. We can talk inside.
We don't have to end it like this. We do, I said, because ending it is the only right choice. He stared at me like I was someone he had never seen before, someone he didn't recognize. Maybe he never really knew me. Maybe he only knew the version of me he thought he could shape. I opened the door a few inches more, not to let him in, but to let my words out clearly. You didn't love me, I said. You loved the idea of a wife who would obey, who would hand over her salary, who would never question your mother. That's not me. It will never be me. He started crying for real then, tears falling fast, breath uneven. In another life, maybe I would have reached out to comfort him. But in this life, the life I finally reclaimed, I simply watched the truth unravel him. I'm begging you, he whispered. Don't go. I already went, I said. When I walked out of your mother's house, I left you behind. Then I closed the door. Not with anger, not with force. Quietly, firmly, finally. I leaned against it for a moment, listening to him stand there on the other side, silent now, broken now. Then I walked away, back into the house that had never betrayed me, back into the life that was mine before anyone tried to claim ownership over it. The day that was supposed to be my wedding day ended without a ceremony, without vows, without a husband. And still, it felt like the first day of my freedom. The morning after what should have been my wedding day felt strangely calm. I woke up in my small brick house in Denver, America, and for the first time in months, there was no weight on my chest. No expectations. No rehearsed smiles. No one is demanding obedience. The sunlight came through my window in warm stripes, and the quiet reminded me that peace isn't loud. Peace whispers. Peace waits. Peace returns when the wrong people leave. I made myself coffee and sat by the kitchen window, watching the street outside come alive with slow, simple movement. A delivery truck rolled by. A neighbor jogged past. A mother pushed a stroller down the sidewalk. Nothing dramatic. Nothing complicated. Yet it felt like the entire world was reminding me that life continues, even after a storm you never saw coming. At 10 o'clock, I drove to the Hayes Tech headquarters downtown. The building had large glass windows, modern steel lines, and a wide entryway lined with plants I insisted the company keep alive. Most employees still didn't know that their quiet boss, as they liked to call me, was supposed to be standing at an altar the day before. They greeted me the same way they always did, with respect, not pity. And that was exactly why I came into the office. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted normal. I wanted purpose. The board called an emergency meeting when they heard what happened with Adam. They weren't angry. They weren't surprised. Instead, they congratulated me for removing a potential conflict of interest before it grew into something harmful for the company. One board member even said, "You saved us from a future disaster." I didn't disagree. Adam's behavior showed exactly the kind of man he truly was. After the meeting, I sat in my office, a wide room with tall windows and a view of the Denver skyline. On my desk lay the plans for our expansion into Europe. I had already invested $5 million into opening a new branch in London, and another project in Paris was under review. The world felt open again, like doors I had forgotten about were now shining with possibility. A part of me wondered how I almost married someone who saw me as a bank, not a partner.
But I didn't dwell on that feeling.
I had a company to build, a team to lead, and a future that didn't include being controlled. Over the next few weeks, people in my neighborhood kept stopping me on the sidewalk. They had seen the rental cars, the decorations, the wedding guests arriving and leaving confused. They had heard whispers. Most of them tried to ask gently, expecting tears, expecting regret. But I gave them the same answer every time, spoken with the calm I had earned. I chose myself. Some looked surprised, as if choosing yourself was an unusual act. But others nodded with a quiet kind of respect, the kind you don't speak out loud. Meanwhile, Adam tried everything he could to reach me. First, he called nonstop. I blocked him. Then he sent long text messages, paragraphs filled with apologies, excuses, and empty promises. I blocked that too. Then the letters started arriving, handwritten, dramatic, pages full of regret. I tore up every single one. I didn't need his guilt. I didn't need his voice. I didn't need a man who thought obedience was love. Evelyn, on the other hand, tried to call from different numbers. She even came by my office once, but security never let her pass the front desk. She left a note with 3 words written in large letters. "You'll regret this." I laughed when I saw it. I regretted nothing. The more distance I created between us, the more I saw how close I had come to losing myself. If I had married Adam, I would have slowly slipped into a life where every paycheck, every decision, every dream would belong to his mother. I would have been a wife in name, but a prisoner in practice. My salary would have been theirs. My time would have been theirs. My identity would have been theirs. Instead, I reclaimed it all. One afternoon, about a month after the wedding that never happened, I opened all the windows of my house and let the fresh American air fill every room. I took down the wedding dress from the closet and donated it to a local charity. Maybe some other woman, one who found real love, would walk down an aisle in it someday. The thought didn't hurt. It felt right. I spent the next few days redesigning my life. I traveled to New York for a business meeting. I flew to London to walk through the new European office space we were renovating. I stood inside that bright London building feeling strong, confident, and very much alive. People shook my hand with genuine respect, not because of my relationship status, not because of a family name, not because of a man beside me, but because of who I was and what I built. Every night, when I returned to my hotel room in Europe, I wrote down a small list of truths that grounded me. Love should not demand payment. Love should not demand obedience. Love should not silence a woman's voice. Love should not walk into your life with a list of rules. And power should never be used to hurt a woman. Those truths became my armor, my reminder, my compass. Months passed. Hayes Tech grew stronger than ever. My life grew clearer than ever. And the part of me that once felt embarrassed or heartbroken became something I didn't expect, grateful. Because sometimes losing the wrong future is the only way to make room for the right one. I never forgave Adam. I never returned his calls. I never allowed him to step into my life again. That chapter closed forever, not with anger, but with understanding. My life did not end on my wedding day. It began.